fine.
So I'll start recording. So in regards to terminations, the first kind of process that I want to walk you through is something that recently coached Brian and Callie on in regards to overcoming objections in sales. And so it's a 3-step. So basically, like when we go through a sales presentation, and at the end, someone gives some objection of why they don't want to get started right now. It could be anything. It could be like, well, I want to talk to my doctor first, or I want to try it first, or I want to talk to my husband, or I need to check my finances.
The multitude of things.
Yeah, doesn't really matter what they say. We classify all of those as just an objection of some sort, right? And so there's a 3-step process that we've established for dealing with those situations. And so I'll go through that with you, and then we'll talk about how that translates pretty seamlessly over to the termination conversations. So when someone says, and also the other thing we want to always tie it back to is our core values. So our core values are in place so that if you guys are ever in doubt about how to handle a situation, I don't care what you do, as long as you can confidently say, hey, I thought about our 3 values and I stuck to those, be the guide, be compassionate, and be the solution, then you more than likely did the right thing, and I'll back you up on it.
Fair enough.
So, because there's always unique scenarios, right? And we want to tie everything back to that. So if someone gives an objection, the 3 steps that we go through is, 1, we first acknowledge the objection with some compassion and empathy. The second step is we want to confirm the objection, and the third step is really overcoming the objection. And so what that would look like is, if you for example, if you were the OsteoStrong person and I'm a prospective member, and I said to you asked me if I wanted to join, and I said I would really like to talk to my doctor first. If we just took step 1, how might you acknowledge that with some empathy and compassion?
I would say I completely understand wanting to talk to your doctor. In fact, I think that you should do so. That would make you more comfortable.
Yep, perfect. Okay, so that's as simple as that. So when someone's objecting to something, then there immediately becomes this friction point, and kind of some tension. And just that statement right there, you just completely lowered the tension, because you took
There's no fight, there's no resistance.
Yeah, there's not a combative situation anymore, right? So that instantly made me feel better about just telling you that, because it was a little uncomfortable for me to even bring that up, right?
Yeah.
So you made me feel better. And then the next step is we want to confirm the objection. And so the analogy I use with Joe with this is, have you ever played poker before?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So imagine we were playing poker. How much easier would it be for you if you could see all of my cards, in terms of?
Super easy. I mean, I would just know.
Yeah, you just know everything, right? So so when the goal of most of these conversations is, people have all of these thoughts and feelings in their head. Sometimes they're very aware of them. Sometimes they haven't even given enough thought to fully understand it themselves. So what we're really trying to do is, we're trying to get all cards out on the table and see their cards first. And so when it comes to an objection, someone may only have 1 card in their hand. They may have multiple cards. We don't really know. So for example, if someone says, I want to talk to my doctor, that could be, what we really want to know is that the true objection that's preventing them from moving forward? Or is there
this is something that you mentioned.
Yeah.
That I need to work on. It's a good one.
Yep. So how might you, if I told you I want to talk to my doctor before making a decision, how might you confirm that that's my only objection or concern?
Well, so I guess after the first statement, I would then ask, and are you asking your doctor because you're nervous about any possible fractures that could be happening, or what would you like to know from your doctor?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so trying to get like a better understanding of why they want to talk to their doctor.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but does that tell you, so let's
It doesn't,
say,
it only deep dives into that specific thing. It wouldn't bring up other things.
mhm.
Um,
So how might you, um, and if you can't think of it, then I'll jump in, but how might you, what could you say or ask that would confirm or deny if there's any other cards I haven't shown you?
the only other thing I could think of would be to ask, what what would you need to hear from your doctor in order for this to be a yes today?
Okay. Yes. So I think it's along the same line. So what I recommend doing is making an assumptive statement. So an assumptive statement would be like, Josie, I totally understand you want to talk to your doctor. That makes, perfect sense. Assuming that your doctor says this is okay for you to do, at
Mm,
that point, would you like to go ahead and get started?
okay. Yes.
Does that make
See
sense?
what you did there? Yes.
Mm-hmm. So one of two things is going to happen at that point. You're either going to verbally tell me, yes, if my doctor says it's okay, I'm ready to get started, or you have another card in your hand that you haven't showed me that you're about to show me. So you might say, well, if my doctor says yes, I still need to check my finances. Now we have
And
an
if the
objection.
finances were there,
Yes.
then would you say yes? Okay.
And
That, well, no, it just seems so simple, but you don't think of it. But like just having that assumptive statement,
mhm.
really helpful.
Yeah. I mean, we're just, you're kind of putting someone in a position where they have to declare, is this the only thing that that's really preventing me from doing this, or is there something I'm not telling
Yeah.
you? Yeah. So that's the first two steps, and then and again, that's at that point we're trying to get all cards out on the table so that we know what their real objection is. Because sometimes people, someone might be a little insecure about their real objection, so they might say something just to try to um, get out of making a decision.
Yeah. I've definitely met a few of those.
Yeah, so we just all we're really trying to do is we're not trying to be manipulative in these conversations. We're trying to understand their thoughts and feelings about it so that we can give them the necessary information to make an informed decision, and in some cases reduce perceived risk that they have.
Yep.
So once we've gotten through those first two steps, assuming that we've identified the true objection and or objections, then the visual I like to think about is from the prospect's perspective. They see two different paths. They see what one path being what you're asking them to do, like in this case, get started right away. And then they see the other path is what they want to do. And those two paths are conflicting. So I can either get started right away, or I can do what I want to do and talk to my doctor.
Yeah.
What we want to do to overcome the objection is we want to merge those together into like a win-win, accommodating both. So how might we do that? So you've, at this point, you've like shown some empathy and compassion, agreed that I should talk to my doctor. You've confirmed that I'm ready to get started as long as my doctor gives the thumbs up. What might you do next if you truly want me to get started right away, but still allow me to?
Well, I would say, why don't we sign all of this, get this, and we'll start you today. Go talk to your doctor, and when they okay you, then we can just get started. If they say anything, I don't know, I don't think I would go down the other path. Let's just get started today and then go talk to your doctor, come back to me.
Yep, exactly. So that's where, and same thing with the husband, you could say something like, you can be like, well, look, when do you think you can talk to your doctor? And they'll, they might say like, I can probably talk to him this week or whatever, right? Okay, great. Here's what I'd recommend for you. This seems like a great fit. Based on what you told me, it sounds like as long as your doctor says this is okay, that you're ready to get started. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So, we've worked with a lot of people in your same scenario. I would be very surprised if your doctor objects, but I totally want you to have that opportunity. The thing is, you really get the best deal if you join during your first visit. I don't want you to miss out on that. So here's what I can do for you. If you want to just take care of the paperwork today, we'll go ahead and get you started. We'll get the paperwork taken care of, and then you can reach out to your doctor this week. And if for any reason at all he objects, we'll just cancel your membership and refund your money, and no harm, no foul. But otherwise, we can get you started right away. How's that sound?
Great. Yeah. What I would recommend for you is a nice statement.
Yes. Yep. So let's see. So I'm going to pull up some notes from the other day. So you kind of understand that process from a sales perspective.
Yes, makes a lot of sense.
So like, for example, Callie had someone that did not sign up yesterday that said she told her the reason was she wouldn't have enough time with her kids going back to school. And I haven't had a chance to talk to Callie about it yet, but my guess is that's not a real objection.
Yeah, it's only 10 minutes a week.
Yeah, not to mention, I think when your kids go back to school, you probably have more time because they're in school all day.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So it's just important. Same thing with terminating. We want to make sure that we fully understand their reason for terminating. So the process is going to be similar, but there's a few steps that take place prior to kind of that 3-step process we just went through. So if you were going to have a conversation with someone that is going to terminate, what are some pieces of information that you would like to know, either going into that conversation or find out early in the conversation?
Well, I want to know why.
Okay.
Naturally, their main reason. And just what I have been doing is I've been looking up their sessions, whether they're hitting their growth triggers, their notes, their wellness assessment, what their goals were. And depending on, what the complaint was, looking at all of that. But I mostly want to know, well, that and why. Maybe, I'm sure there's other examples where I would need other stuff.
I think that's all really good info. So you have, you mentioned what their goals were, right? So I think that's one of the first questions, and we can even if we see it in the wellness assessment, it's good to make it fresh in their mind. So I think one of the initial questions would be something like, Why did you join OsteoStrong, or what were you hoping to get out of joining? Or doing this, right? So letting them kind of reconnect with why they were doing it in the first place and confirming it for you. I think having stats and data is really good to have pooled ahead of time, and why they want to terminate is definitely another critical piece of information. One that I would sandwich in between what their main goal was and what they want to terminate is it kind of bridges that gap. So why in any relationship of any type or any experience, any business, any service or product you buy, why is someone disappointed?
It's not up to expectation.
Perfect. Exactly. So they had a certain set of expectations going into it, right? And then those expectations weren't met. It's really that simple. That's really the only time someone is disappointed.
Right.
So part of that becomes the person who's signing that member up, and during that initial baseline, making sure that we have discussed that with them, making sure that they have realistic expectations that we can meet, and ideally we've set the table so that we've under-promised and can over-deliver.
Yes.
So, it's something as simple as someone who's trying to increase their bone density. I always try to let each new member know that a success, a minimum success would be just slowing your loss. So if you're losing bone and we can slow down the rate at which that is losing, that is still a success.
So that's actually something, like, mindset's been the one thing that I'm really trying to get first and foremost, like, changed, at least at DTC, and that I'm hearing from your virtual calls and all the follow-up, like baselines, and now in all the initial baselines, that is something that I say.
Yep.
So it's been really helpful, and just kind of with growth triggers and when someone's probably going to stop exceeding,
yep.
Just switching the mentality. And so that's been one really helpful in stopping a lot of people from being disappointed in their sessions.
Exactly. And just like you said, all of that is relating back to setting expectations. So, but when someone's at a point they're ready to cancel, we want to uncover, what their expectations were and have a conversation around that. So, why did you join in the first place? What were your expectations? And then you can unpack that, and what has changed since the time you started that is making you want to cancel, or why do you what is making you feel like your expectations aren't being met?
Yep.
And I think if you do a good job at that, the reason they give you of why they want to terminate will become pretty evident. But if you're not certain that they're, again, showing all of their cards of why they truly want to terminate, then you can go through that same process we just went through about objections. So if someone says to you, Josie, I just, I'm traveling, a couple months, and, I just don't think, I think I just want to take some time off. I don't want to do this. What might you say?
I mean, I completely understand traveling and needing to take some time off. Life gets busy. And termination, I'm doing it for sales.
So you just...
I acknowledge that you want to take time off for traveling.
What's step 2?
Acknowledge and confirm.
Okay, so
or an assumptive statement. So assuming that you could do all this traveling without having to be charged for OsteoStrong, would you come back when you were done traveling?
I see what you're trying. One more time. Just think about it for a second and think about how might you confirm that's the real reason. What assumptive statement could you make? And basically, when you're making an assumptive statement, you're removing an obstacle.
There you go. So I'm assuming that OsteoStrong is taking up too much of your travel time. That sounds mean.
So what I would do, think about, there's currently an obstacle that they've presented you that they're saying is in their way. I want you to move that obstacle aside with an assumptive statement and see if there's another obstacle behind it or if that's it. So in that scenario, I would just say, well, you know, so another word, instead of assuming, you could say hypothetically, right?
Hypothetically.
So you could say, well, be like, I totally get it. Like you said, like, I totally get it. Like, life gets busy. It's summer. There's a lot of people traveling. I'm just curious, though, hypothetically, if you didn't have these trips planned and you weren't traveling, would you plan on continuing to come?
It seems so easy and right in front of you. Okay.
So see how I basically, I'm testing them. I basically moved that obstacle aside and said, okay, we're going to set that over here for a second. Now, once that's over here, do you still want to continue?
Okay, so assuming that you weren't traveling, would you still want to continue?
Yep.
Okay. Assuming that it wasn't so expensive, would you still want to continue?
Yep.
Assuming that your husband said yes, would you want to continue?
Yep.
Okay, that helps.
Yep. So you can use words like assuming, you can use words like hypothetically, you can use just the word if, like if it wasn't, too expensive for your current budget, would you want, whatever. But you're just making these hypothetical assumptive statements to test what they're saying. Oh, did you freeze? Did I lose you? Cool. So let's see. We left off at basically
with
you recap
setting.
If I say so start from the top on step 1 and 2. If I say, hey, I want to cancel because I have some travel coming up.
I totally understand needing to cancel because you're doing lots of traveling. If you weren't doing the traveling that you have scheduled, would you still be coming to OsteoStrong?
Yeah, no, I mean, I really enjoy it.
Awesome. So I would recommend one, then this gets into kind of like, so, because I'm not trying to offer anybody anything like right away. I'm just trying to get to the core. So once I know that that's out of the way, then that goes into kind of merging the paths. So how would I?
Yeah, I mean, you're thinking correctly. Like you want to have, again, just keep going back to this card analogy. You want all of their cards out on the table, and you're just doing that through questions, right? So you're just asking questions and getting information from them. You're gathering all the information so you fully understand their situation and where they're coming from. And once you have all that at the end, that's where at the end you can say, well, here's what I would recommend for you based on what you're telling me.
Okay, so that's what I was going to go into, but because I feel like that was all the cards out on the table. And then I think just I would recommend a hold, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, so just, you'd probably, in that example, you'd probably just want to know, like, how long are they traveling for? When are they traveling? Where are they traveling to? And you could go through all the stuff. You could be like, well, did you know?
You can go to another OS.
Yeah, like, you'd be like, I've been to the one in Santa Barbara. It's really cool, and So, but the point is you just gather all the information and then you start, seeing what best suits them at that point. But you can, you're repeating, and in your solution, you're repeating back to them what they've told you.
Yeah, well, and I think that second statement is going to be really helpful, because I have a lady who, one, just wants to cancel because of financials. And then as I was on the phone with her, she was talking to me about talking to her husband too. And so I feel like this will be really helpful in being like, so if, financials were a problem, would you be here? And if your husband said yes, would you be here?
Yeah. And connecting that back to why they joined in the first place. And another question you could ask, like, is, you could just be like, well, hey, you told me, like, when you joined you wanted to improve your bone density. Is that something that's still important to you? Like, is that still a current goal of yours?
Yeah.
And just
refreshing.
Yeah, refresh. And if they say yes, then it's okay. It's like, okay, well, here's another little piece. If at the end, if you can't, or you kind of use it where you want, but one question I like to ask is, like, if I said, hey, Josie, you said that, you joined originally because you wanted to increase bone density. Is that still a goal of yours?
Yes.
It is. Okay. So, I mean, how important is that to you?
I'd say a 10.
Okay. So it sounds like it's really important. And what has been your current plan for doing that besides OsteoStrong?
People have told me walking and working out.
Yeah, sure. I mean, walking and working out are great for your health. And unfortunately, the whole reason that, these OsteoStrong machines exist is because, walking and working out just doesn't put enough pressure on your bone to keep it strong, which is why, I mean, how frequently throughout your life have you walked and exercised?
On and off.
On and off. But do you feel like you've done it? Do you feel like if it was really effective for bone health, that you've done it frequently enough that your bone would be in good shape?
Probably not.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, because we see people in here that have been marathon runners their whole life, and they still end up with bone loss, because we know just, fortunately that walking and working out just doesn't come anywhere close to what you're doing in here. But what I'm really getting at is, it sounds like your bone health is a really important goal for you. I just want to make sure that you have, the best plan possible for hitting that goal. So if you discontinue OsteoStrong, how do you plan on achieving better bone health?
Yeah, I think asking the roadblock question is another thing that I'll need to start adding in, is asking them, because I've heard Brian do that a lot too, is, well, what are you going to do if you don't do this?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because sometimes people haven't even thought about that, right? Yeah. They what I was explaining to Joe, what we're really trying to do in these situations is, first, we're trying to understand where they're coming from, get all their cards out on the table, and then from there, our cards that we want to get on the table is all the information relative to what they've shared with us, so that they can make a logical decision rather than an emotional one.
Fair enough.
Right? Because sometimes people might be, maybe they just got a pay cut, right? And so they're very emotional towards finances, and their gut reaction is just like, oh, I got to cancel my OsteoStrong membership, right? And so they just made a quick emotional decision in their head, They put their cancellation notice in, you have this discussion, it turns out to be about finances, you unpack that, but they haven't actually taken the time for themselves to think through, well, why am I actually doing OsteoStrong? How important is this to me? Is there something else less important that I could cut out of my budget? So those are the types of things we're trying to help people with, rather than just making these like emotional decisions without thinking it through. How can we fully understand their situation so we can give them all the information they need to make the best choice for them?
Yeah, just unpack it all.
Yeah. So kind of like you were saying in the travel example, it's like once you unpacked all that, then you start putting your cards out on the table. You start saying like, okay, well, you can visit other centers. Did you know that we have a hold policy so you don't actually have to pay for your membership while you're traveling? But that way, when you come back, you don't have to pay another enrollment fee, and you'll get to keep your same rate you're currently at. You start playing your cards.
Throwing out options. Yep. Okay, so I like the path here, and I like the guiding points, I guess you could say, kind of what I need to know, what I should get, and how to respond. And I think the main things I need to start really implementing, because I think I get the first one and the third one down pretty well, but I think it's that deep dive of confirming what their objection is, as well as adding in what their next plan is if they do.
Yep.
So I think those are 2 points that will be helpful for me to really emphasize.
And I think you'll be really good at that. The best thing that I can tell you is just like, for me, like I have to remind myself, just slow down and just ask questions, right? And just take your time through the conversation, let it unfold and unpack organically. Don't feel like you have to like ask something that feels too abrasive, right? Like you can ease into a series of questions, and you're just getting them to share information, get them talking, get to understand where they're coming from, and you're leading them down a path so that you understand their situation, you share all the options, and then they make an educated decision. And if they still choose to cancel at that point, that's okay, right? Like we had the conversation, we understood where they were coming from, we gave them the options, we gave them the opportunity to make a fully informed choice.
Yeah. Well, and I think just the fact that we're trying to get them to have a fully informed, logical rather than emotional response.
Yep.
That's something that I'll have to switch to too, is the more logical. But with them having all the information, it should be an easier choice.
And it can still be an emotional choice, but we want the emotion to be rooted in the correct thing, right? So if they're making,
And I think I need to take my emotion out of it, is more what I'm like, because sometimes don't take things personally.
Exactly.
So yeah.
And so how does this process tie back to our core values for you?
Oh God. Well, I mean, they're all right there. I mean, you're compassionate, and we're guiding through understanding them, and then we're here to offer a solution. They can choose to take it or not.
Yep.
So I think they're all there.
Yeah, the more I've gone through this, the more I think we should switch the order of the core values. I think it should be compassionate, be the guide, be the solution.
I thought that's how it was.
I think it's been be the guide, be compassionate, be the solution. So I think we should always lead with compassion, and then
Nobody wants to be guided by an uncompassionate
that's
person.
right. Yeah, well, and there's a lot of overlap between the guide. If you broke it up into 2 subcategories, it's really empathy and authority. So, or another word would be empathy and competence. So empathy and compassion are relatively the same. But yeah, I mean, I think I would just try that out, see how it works for you. But that's really the same thing we're doing in the sales process, is like we're starting with compassion and just like trying to get all their cards out on the table, fully understand their needs and desires, and show some compassion and empathy for things that they've experienced and gone through. And after that, we're trying to really guide them through how we can potentially help, and then ultimately present them with a solution that's suited for them.
Yeah. When I have I have like two, but mostly one person that I'll get to try this on this week. So
Okay.
I feel a little bit more prepared. I feel like I have some more tools now.
Yep.
And this was actually really helpful. So thank you.
Good. So moving forward from here, I'd be curious. I'd like to do a couple calls with you and Joe together, and we could go through some like previous cancellations, and we can talk about how we might approach those situations if they were to happen again.
Yeah, I think that would be continued useful.
Yep. But ultimately, what's going to help you guys get this is just a lot of repetitions. So I'll let you and Joe kind of decide how you want to tackle that. But this is definitely something, if you guys wanted to, that you could role play with each other as well with different scenarios, and just get more comfortable, asking the questions. And
practice.
Yeah.
Lots of practice. And I think, I'll probably reach out to him. There's some role playing times, because I think him and I could both benefit from it.
Okay.